welcome to this week's Facebook Live. It's based on, as always, based on this week's blog, and this week we're going to be talking about that inner critic, that inner voice that we have in our head that can get quite critical at times. So we're going to talk about a couple of techniques that you can use to help bring that down, tone it down, build awareness around it, and tone it down, because it is one of the most powerful influences we can have on our daily lives. That conversation that's going on in our heads, and it can take up an awful lot of energy every day, and it this takes a toll on our mental and physical health when we're constantly battling basically ourselves. Now it does have some positives to it. It can help us, as it did in the past, help us to survive, help us to stay safe, and it can still do that. It can be part of that gut instinct telling you, this isn't safe, get out of there. So it can have a positive benefit to it. But when we get caught up in the negative thinking, in this negative cycle, that's when things start to go wrong, and we can become stuck in negative thinking patterns. I'm sure you've all experienced them: the procrastination or the perfectionism, any other kind of cognitive distortive thinking that you might have come across yourself. And this then builds this cycle within ourselves when we get caught up in one of these, because it increases further feelings, negative emotions, physical sensations, and behaviors. Then we can then react, and an awful lot of time when we're reacting, we're not being proactive. And I've talked about this before, the difference. So the reacting is when we're not acting in our own best interest, we're just reacting. We're not taking that step back and seeing what's really going on here. How can I be more proactive here when I take an action step or behave in my behavior? So, a couple of techniques very quickly. They're very simple. A lot of people might write them off, but they are very effective. The first one is what I consider part of your basic self-care, which is a meditation. So some form of meditation, because this can help slow down the brain. It can help slow us down. All the stress, all the fright responses, slows it down, can slow down that inner critic, and then we can start to notice what's really being said. We can stand back, almost take a mental stand back and start to observe our thoughts, what we're thinking. What is this inner critic telling us? So it just gives us, with practice, with the meditation, it just gives you that second to go, hold on, what's going on here? What's actually happening here? It gives us that time, enough time when we practice meditation. You don't have to go and take a class. You breathe every day. A 3-minute breather used throughout the day is very effective. I've talked about the 3-minute breather before. There is a free session if you want to take it. The link is in the description to the blog, and you'll find the 3-minute breather link to that free session in there. But it's a very simple technique. It's based on the 7-11 technique. So you breathe in for 7 and out for 11. So you're bringing down, bringing down your breathing, slowing it down, and allowing yourself time to calm down. And as I said, with practice, then you can take that mental step back and observe how you're talking to yourself, because when you do that, it allows you to see the patterns. What's the pattern there? Where's the voice's origin? A lot of the time we're picking it up from somebody else, particularly over the course of our lives. We're picking it up maybe from our childhood, or perhaps you have a boss or a partner that wasn't very pleasant to be around. They're very negative, so you're picking all that up. Even the environment you're in, what are you listening to, what are you watching, it can be bombarding us with negativity, and therefore it can build a negative cycle. But if we can take that step back with the meditation, it does help to defang. We can then defang the inner critic, and we can move on to what I would consider then a step 2, which is my second tip that you can use, and that's to get to know your ants. Okay, you think about them as little ants crawling around up here, and it's just a word that we use, and it's automatic negative thoughts. That's all it means, ants, but ants for short. These can be driven by our core beliefs. Now, I've spoken about core beliefs and why it's important that you get to recognize them. and challenge them, because an awful lot of times, a core belief that we hold is not necessarily true, but they're going to drive us, to think in a certain way, react in a certain way, certain emotions, physiological responses are going to be all driven by these. So when we get to know these automatic negative thoughts, or ants, it helps us to uncover those patterns. Because, if you're holding on to a belief that is, even if it is negative, and if you took it out and examined it and you said, that's not very rational, that's illogical. But until you actually do, until you actually can recognize it and take it out and examine it, then you will self-sabotage, even on a subconscious level, until you start to question that. You can't change it. So our automatic negative thinking, those thoughts, can help us to identify the inner critic's thought patterns, and usually then the underlying core belief, and it's usually a negative one that's associated with those automatic negative thoughts. So that's important that we do that. So how would you do that? The first thing I kind of say to you is it's a 3-step process. Now, it's not a big 3-step process, okay? It's very simple. You can do it every night. You can start to do this every night. You could do a meditation, and then you could do this 3-step process. So the first part of it would be get out your journal and record as many of your thoughts as you can remember from the day, or whatever's coming up right now in your head. Write them down. Try and get in the habit of doing them when you've been triggered, or you realize you've been triggered. Even carrying, a small notebook in your bag, just making a quick note, even a quick note to yourself on your phone or your tablet. Keep them private, make sure they're secure. But just record as many as you can, so you can start then to see them, and that'll be part 2. But you just be patient with yourself. Observe the ants, the automatic negative thoughts. Just observe them. Try and be compassionate with yourself when you're writing them, but just get them up and out. That's the first part, just to up and out, record your thoughts. The second part then is to reflect on them, okay? It's important that we look at them and we start to, examine them. So reread them. Just reread what you've recorded and start to look for the patterns. See, can you see patterns? Can you see ones that are tied together? Maybe they're tied to a particular trigger. That could be a person, a place, or something else. See what's triggering you. Is it tied to a particular belief about yourself? Maybe you feel you're not good enough. Maybe it's attached to a particular memory that you keep playing over and over in your head. Is there any physical responses? Physiological. What are you feeling inside? Not just emotionally, but if you got butterflies in your tummy, or do you feel anxious? Do you feel stressed? Is your stress levels, can you notice tension in your shoulders, and your shoulders starting to go up towards your ears? Think about, how am I feeling physiologically? As well as your emotional, how are you feeling emotionally? And then what behavior, how did you behave then in that moment, that trigger? And what thoughts were associated with that behavior? Can you see, what triggered you into doing that behavior, basically? And that's what you're trying to do with this exercise. Now, the more you practice this, the quicker you will get. In fact, if you do it enough times, you should be able to do it and respond. If you do your meditation, it gives you the ability to step back mentally, but you should be able to run through this 3-step process automatically the more you do it. And basically what you're trying to do with this, when you're being triggered and you're being caught up in that negative thinking, and what you're doing is you're trapping yourself. You're in a trap. So you're trying to then switch track. We want to switch track, and I've talked about from traps to tracks before, but this is the process of how you would do that, a simplified way of doing this. So look at the questions. What when you're reflecting on it, some questions you might want to ask yourself. Now, if you're watching this in replay, you can stop the video and take some of these questions down, but I have got them in the blog, so go check them out, read the blog, have a look at the questions there that you can use. They're suggestions. You can add any other questions you can think of yourself. So what type of automatic negative thinking is it? So have a look at it. Am I catastrophizing? Is it all or nothing or black and white thinking? Am I procrastinating here? Is it perfectionism? Is my perfectionism coming out? Am I mislabeling something? Am I mind reading? So think about what kind of automatic negative thought it might be. And then you get to, examine it a bit more. Is it true or not? You want to you're going to put it on trial here. So is it helping me in some way? Is it protecting me? Is it keeping a particular script going in my head? Is it a belief that I have about myself? Is it keeping it up? What is the effect that this thinking is having on me? And again, it could be your behavior, it could be within your relationships, it could be emotionally. Think about how it's affecting you in all ways. Is it helping you or hindering you? Is it upsetting you? Is it being destructive? Are you reacting in a destructive manner and because of it? Can you identify the core belief? Because that would be good if you can identify that maybe. And whose tape is it really? Because automatic negative thinking, it's automatic. We're doing it automatically. It's like a tape playing in our head. It's like a recording playing in our head. So who did you hear saying that first? Who is it? Whose voice or who do you think it is that maybe, said these things to you? Or when you say them to yourself, who are you really hearing? It could be just one person or it could be a number of voices. And when you hear that tape, is it reminding you of a particular incident in your life in the past? Maybe it was recorded over many years. It might be down to one incident. Say you were bullied in school, for instance. So it may have stemmed from there. Or it could be recorded. You've met a number of negative people, a number of bullies. So it could be a multiples there of what was going on for you. So that's where step 3 comes in. You use those questions to, we've recognized them, we've recorded them, we're going back over them. And when we go back over them, we can then start to challenge them. Is it true or not? Basically, you're putting it on trial. So that's step 3 there. So added to that then would be, when you can identify them, is to add in an affirmation. And people go, oh, affirmation, so silly, woo, woo, woo. But if you stop and think about an affirmation, what it is, an affirmation basically is the opposite of that inner critic. So the automatic negative thinking happened over time because you usually heard something from somebody else, or you were listening and being bombarded by a lot of negativity from something. So an affirmation then is a positive thought. And what you're doing is you're rewriting the negative with the positive, and the positive then form those affirmations, when you say them over and over again, are forming a new recording in your brain that help you then to challenge even more that negative thinking. So you could feel, oh, I'm a failure, I never succeed at this. You can then challenge it. Yes, I have succeeded. Look, this is where I've succeeded before. I can do this. So an affirmation there could be, I can do this. If you feel, or, oh, I'm not good enough. Yes, I am good enough. I am worthy. Simple affirmation. So you're using those affirmations in two ways. One, to record a new way of thinking for yourself. And secondly, to use it to defang that inner critic, to say, no, I'm challenging you. No. So it's like a dual conversation going on in your mind. No, this, you're not getting away with this anymore. I'm not going to put up with that bad behavior. I mean, let's face it. You're taking bad behavior that you wouldn't maybe take from somebody else. You're taking it from yourself. Just remember though, in all of this, even with those 2 simple techniques, the meditation and, the 3-step process around your automatic negative thinking, it took time to build up. So it does take a bit of practice to do this. It takes some patience with yourself, and it takes time to see the changes. So, think about giving yourself that time, that nurturing, that self-acceptance. this whole process, you know, a 3-minute breather, a brain dump, followed by, you know, challenging, reflecting on what you've written and challenging. It shouldn't take you very long at night. You know, you give yourself 15 to 20 minutes to do this exercise every night, and you'll be amazed how quickly you will see some results for yourself. So that's it. That's it for today. As always, I'm very happy to answer any questions. Anybody has any queries or anything like that, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you for watching live. Thank you for watching those that watch in replay here and on YouTube. And I will talk to you all again. There will be another blog out on Monday, and I will talk to you all again on Facebook Live next Friday. Thank you.